Discover how a teen's incredible act of kindness transformed a billionaire's daughter forever. Lucas Thompson woke before dawn, the familiar scent of damp earth and hay filling his senses. This was farm life, simple, unyielding, yet defined by the relentless grind of daily chores. As a high school senior, Lucas carried the weight of his family's struggling farm on his shoulders, and the looming dread of failure hung around him like a heavy fog. His heart raced with conflicting desires, while he yearned to pursue his dreams of making a difference in environmental science. The harsh reality of his family's economic despair anchored him to the soil. Hard work and kindness, his mother's words echoed through his mind, as a long day of ploughing fields and managing livestock lay ahead. The pressure gnawed at him, a constant reminder of what was at stake. His mother's sacrifices, the generations of Thompson farmers before him, and his own aspirations crumbling under the weight of responsibility. Could he truly bridge the gap between the endless labor of the farm and the innovative ideas buzzing in his head? Doubt crept in, gnawing at his determination as he watched the sunrise bleed into a day that felt all too familiar. In his fleeting moments of hope, a flicker ignited when news of a prestigious state competition arrived, calling for innovative agricultural projects. Perhaps, he thought, this could be his moment. But what if his efforts fell flat? What if he reached out, only to have the door slammed in his face? The possibility of rejection loomed larger than the chance for approval. With the first crop of the season due to harvest and bills stacking up like weeds, every tick of the clock reminded him that success was not just a dream. It was a necessity. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The pressure sharpened as Lucas strode towards school, each step filled with the anguish of competing desires. Secluded in a world where financial despair defined existence, he was desperate to break through, to be seen, and to make a difference. Even his classmates, awaiting acceptance into elite colleges, seemed worlds apart, and guilt clawed at him like a beast. Did he have the right to dream when his family depended on him to stay grounded? His thoughts spiraled as he neared the school gates, wondering if he could simply reach out and find support for his project. The anticipation was suffocating. That evening, with the weight of expectation pushing heavily on him, Lucas thought he glimpsed a future where he could truly make a mark. Yet lurking in the shadows were his family's mounting financial problems and the fear of failure. What if his efforts drew ridicule or met with silence? Each question hung above him, suffocating and bitter. As Lucas held onto his flickering hope, a revelation struck like a lightning bolt. He had no idea how to navigate this world outside the farm. He could almost hear the whispers of his mother urging him to embrace his dreams, while knowing each thread of her enduring belief intertwined painfully with his fears. Torn between duty and ambition, Lucas was on the brink of something monumental, uncertain of which path could lead him to not just a better life, but a worthier one. And the realization hit that in the quest for change, he might lose everything he purposefully fought for. The next morning brought with it a resolve that Lucas hadn't felt in a while. Standing at the edge of the fields, the sun slicing through the morning fog, he sensed a shift within himself. It was as if a fire ignited deep inside, pushing him to confront the tangled web of expectations and aspirations that defined his existence. He scanned the green expanse before him and let his thoughts wander to the upcoming state competition. What if the project could serve not just as a lifeline for his family, but as a catalyst for change? The optimism bubbled up, and for the first time he made a decision. He would enter the competition. Self-doubt still clawed at him, but he pushed it aside as he mentally mapped out a plan. With a renewed sense of purpose, Lucas spent the rest of the day strategizing. He jotted down ideas, focusing on sustainable techniques that could be applied to their farming practices. Each scribbled note felt like a step toward liberation. He recalled snippets of his environmental science textbooks, innovative irrigation systems, organic pest control, and soil rejuvenation techniques. This was his opportunity to not only seek breakthrough solutions, but to weave his knowledge into the fabric of his family's existence. However, contemplating this journey wasn't entirely smooth. The gravity of his family's financial woes pressed on him with an overwhelming intensity. The urgency of his decision weighed heavy as he recalled the stack of unpaid bills and his mother's weary smile, masking the burdens she carried. He could almost hear her saying, "Dreams can change lives, but they come with sacrifices." Those sacrifices echoed ominously in his ears. As school resumed, Lucas found himself observing his classmates with fresh eyes. Many were immersed in conversations about college applications and scholarships. Yet, in their laughter and carefree banter, Lucas recognized a distance. They simply couldn't fathom the level of pressure he faced. He was spiraling deeper into his own mind, wrestling with envy and admiration for those who seemed to glide through life with purpose and ease. The school library became his sanctuary. Lucas gravitated toward agricultural journals, scouring for inspiration, just as he had always immersed himself in the farm. Immersed in articles, he stumbled upon a quote that struck a chord deep within him. "The earth is a canvas, and the farmer a painter." The vivid imagery reignited his determination. He wanted to paint his own masterpiece, one that blended tradition with innovation. However, that evening, as he worked late into the night, he confronted another fear, the skepticism of the judges. What if his ideas were deemed too far-fetched? What if they saw him as just a farm boy, with dreams bigger than his reality? The thought stirred a storm of anxiety, and he faltered, questioning whether he was merely setting himself up for more disappointment. But amidst those doubts, one thought crystallized. There was no shame in trying. Even if he faced rejection, he would have fought for his vision. A glimmer of courage flickered within as he decided to gather feedback from his teachers, combining their insights with his understanding. He reached out to Mrs. Evans, his science teacher, who had always encouraged his curiosity in environmental issues. "Can I present my ideas to you?" he asked, feeling vulnerable but resolute. Her warm smile and nod felt like an anchor amidst his turbulent sea of uncertainty. As Lucas prepared for their meeting, he realized something essential. Support could be found, even in the most unexpected places. The thought invigorated him. Each friendly smile, encouraging word, and supportive gesture began weaving a safety net beneath him, allowing him to step closer to unveiling his potential. But as he walked to school the next day, a familiar anxiety encroached. With the competition deadline looming, would he have enough time to refine his ideas? The answer was just out of reach. Each tick of time painted a picture of urgency tinged with possibility. Listening closely to his heart, he understood he was standing on a precipice. Would he dare to leap into a future unknown, or would he retreat into the safety of familiarity? The next hurdle loomed ahead, drawing closer, and Lucas felt the weight of the moment. The time had come to face both his fears and the opportunity that awaited him. Would he take that leap into the unknown, or would he let fear keep him grounded? As Lucas entered the classroom, the familiar hum of students discussing their weekend adventures filled the air. But today, instead of feeling detached, he steeled himself with the knowledge that his journey had just begun. He had reached out to Mrs. Evans, and now he would seize this opportunity. Each step towards her desk was a testament to the commitment he made to himself, pushing him closer to confronting his own self-doubt. When the bell chimed, Lucas took a deep breath. He approached her desk, clutching his notes tightly in his hands, as though doing so would solidify his courage. "Mrs. Evans," he said, his voice steadier than he anticipated, "I'd like to share my project ideas with you." With an encouraging nod, she gestured for him to sit. As he laid out his thoughts, the anxiety that had once clouded his mind began to dissipate, replaced by the vibrant exchange of ideas. Mrs. Evans listened intently, occasionally interjecting with questions that challenged Lucas to think deeper. It was during this exchange he realized that his mind sharpened. He wasn't merely presenting, he was evolving. Yet even as the conversation flowed, doubt flickered in the corner of his mind. Would these ideas even resonate outside the confines of their classroom? Would anyone else appreciate the connection he felt with the earth, or was this all just a fantasy? The familiar dread clawed at him, threatening to choke his enthusiasm. But Mrs. Evans's feedback was compelling. "I believe you have something valuable here, Lucas. Have you thought about how you might illustrate these concepts during your presentation?" That question was like a spark, igniting further creativity. Visualization had not crossed his mind. How could he translate his knowledge to others? He left the classroom with renewed vigor, racing against time to sketch a visual plan that paired seamlessly with his written ideas. The more he fostered these visions, the more fueled his ambition became. Back at home that evening, Lucas spread the notes and diagrams across the kitchen table, where the warm light hugged him in a comforting embrace. The quiet hum of his family's life around him only served as a reminder of what was at stake. Every sketch felt like a tether to their dreams, and he found comfort in the fact that every pencil stroke could mean the difference between uncertainty and possibility. But beneath that comfort lay an undercurrent of unease. What if these ideas, no matter how well crafted, were not enough? As he studied the overlapping designs, merging innovation and tradition, the realization hit him. This wasn't just about the competition. It was about defining his identity, about carving a niche in a world that often overlooked voices like his. This was Lucas, the aspiring innovator, woven into the tapestry of a lineage steeped in farming. With each passing hour, determination eclipsed his earlier doubts. He was a student, a thinker, a doer, and with that came the power of agency to propel himself and his family away from their struggles. He began to formulate a list of potential questions he might face from judges and skeptics alike, a strategy to reinforce his arguments against potential rejections. As the night deepened, he realized his hard work had erased much of the anxiety he had felt leading up to this moment. But something gnawed at him still. There were far more components to his transformation than he understood. He found himself wondering, in a moment of clarity, about the experiences he had overlooked in his journey thus far. Could he articulate the emotional investment that fueled his ideas? Lucas leaned back, a new question awakening. How would he make them see, not just hear, his vision? And as he began drafting the emotional narrative to accompany his project, he felt poised before a profound challenge. For in sharing not only his ideas but the heart behind them, he was reclaiming his identity. Would he discover the courage to set this new narrative into motion, or falter once again at the precipice of vulnerability? The clock was ticking, and time was both his ally and enemy, urging him forward into the unknown. Lucas awoke the next morning invigorated, his mind buzzing with ideas and narratives that felt as tangible as the sunlight streaming through his window. He understood now that his presentation extended beyond mere facts and figures. It demanded emotional resonance. It was a chance to connect with his audience, and he was determined not to squander it. He bounded down the stairs, still unshaken in his resolve. Every family member he encountered was not just someone to pass by. They were part of the narrative he was forging, a tapestry woven with dreams and struggles, where his project would emerge as a shared triumph. In his mind, Lucas formulated how he would introduce his project to his classmates. It was essential to ensure they saw the importance of sustainable farming, not only as a technique, but as a lifestyle that resonates with their shared community values. As he poured cereal into a bowl, a subtle sense of anxiety crept in. What if they didn't connect with his passion? The thought tightened his chest momentarily. He quickly reminded himself, however, of Mrs. Evans's encouragement. "Believe in the value of your perspective," she had said. Scraping a stubborn piece of cereal from the rim of the bowl, Lucas admitted to himself that vulnerability was integral to his growth. He needed to showcase who he was without the protective armor of doubt. That realization alone ignited a spark. His project was not simply a presentation, it was a declaration of his identity. At school, he arrived early, heart racing with anticipation. The classroom was still empty, the air thick with possibilities. He set up his materials on a desk in front of the classroom, arranging his sketches artfully, letting each design breathe with significance. Each image served as a reminder that he was rooted in a tradition of resilience and innovation. As he awaited his turn to present, he watched his classmates sharing nervous glances and exchanging anxious whispers. Their collective unease mirrored his own. It clicked for him then. They were all grappling with the same fear of judgment. Thus arose a challenge, one he felt compelled to twist into an opportunity. Rather than hiding behind the safety of his notes, he would invite others into his story. When the bell rang, Lucas's heart drummed a steady rhythm of uncertainty and excitement. The classroom filled with classmates, laughter echoing, but he felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. His mind was clear. He was ready to share what truly mattered. "Hey everyone," he started, his voice steady. "Today I want to talk about something deeply personal to me." He noticed the swift gaze of interest from his peers. Curiosity piqued. "It's about farming and our community's connection to the earth." Lucas elaborated, weaving anecdotes about his grandparents who had tended the land tirelessly. He paused at moments to allow them to digest the emotional weight of each story. With each passing word, he saw shifts in their expressions, hints of connection lighting up their faces. The realization struck him. They were not just listening, they were feeling. As he shifted to the visuals, the sketches became a bridge between his experiences and theirs. He was no longer just a presenter, he was a storyteller. Questions flowed from his classmates. Every inquiry delved deeper into his narrative, allowing Lucas not only to defend his ideas, but to further articulate the emotional investment that breathed life into them. After finishing his presentation, a sudden wave of vulnerability washed over him. He had exposed his aspirations and doubts, but instead of shame, he felt exhilaration. Each person in that room had engaged, and more importantly, they had witnessed him, the real Lucas defined by passion and commitment. As applause filled the room, buoyed by unexpected approval, a thought uncoiled inside him. Was there a chance to foster a dialogue beyond this moment, to ignite discussions about farming, sustainability, and community among them? Returning home, Lucas's heart thrummed with a blend of achievement and yearning. Facing the emotional high of his day, he realized the pivotal moment that lay ahead. This was just the beginning of his journey. What if he could catalyze more awareness about sustainable practices, not only among his peers, but across the broader community? The clock ticked on, and Lucas stood at the threshold of something new, a deeper mission that sparked a profound challenge. Would he take this momentum and transform it into a movement? The questions loomed large, hinting at a future rich with potential, yet fraught with obstacles. The time had come, and this venture beckoned him. How far could his vision reach? Lucas experienced a restless night of contemplating his place in the world. The echoes of his classmates' reactions replayed in his mind, feeding both a newfound confidence and an undercurrent of doubt. The warmth of their applause was a balm, yet it was the visceral exchange of ideas that lit a fire in him. He felt the pull of a purpose that extended beyond a single presentation, a nascent ambition that stirred deep within. The next morning, the sunlight wrapped around him again, yet it held a different hue. Today felt critical, a crossroad between sustaining his small triumph and pursuing something grander. His morning routine felt half-formed. He struggled to focus, but managed to shake off distractions by writing down ideas as they surged from his mind. He yearned to engage deeper conversations surrounding sustainable farming, not just in school, but in the broader community. It was time to rise above the classroom walls. At breakfast, Lucas's thoughts were interrupted by his sister, Isabel, who was bustling around preparing for her own day. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she studied his face. "What's going on in that head of yours, Lucas? You look like you're about to launch a rocket," she quipped. "I'm thinking of organizing a community discussion about sustainability," Lucas confessed, words tumbling out before he could rein them in. It was a spark he hadn't planned to share, but it lit up the space between them. Isabel stopped, her demeanor shifting. "That's actually a brilliant idea. You could get a lot of people talking." Her endorsement pulled him further into that daydream, and Lucas found himself on the precipice of an exciting venture. He needed more than just good intentions. He required a plan, mentors, and a way to find willing participants. At school, his mind buzzed, processing the next steps. During lunch, seated at a table with his closest friends, Lucas laid out his thoughts, his hands gesturing animatedly as he spoke about creating a dialogue around farming practices. Their initial responses were filled with a mix of playful jokes and genuine curiosity, which grounded him in his purpose. "What if each of us brings someone from home who cares about this stuff?" one friend suggested, his enthusiasm contagious. Lucas's heart surged. This wasn't merely about education, it was a platform for connection. The group soon brainstormed ideas, and he sensed that his excitement was lighting the way for others to follow suit. Later that week, Lucas approached Mrs. Evans after class, his pulse quickening. "I'd like to talk to you about organizing something, an event for sustainability in our community." Gratitude flashed across her face, twinkling in her eyes. "This is a wonderful endeavor, Lucas. I believe conversations about sustainability need to happen now, more than ever." She took her time, offering insights both valuable and enlightening. Lucas sought her guidance on structure and outreach, eagerly discussing community connections and potential locations. Each checkpoint he sought to navigate was infused with every bit of passion he could muster, solidifying his vision. Days melted into weeks as planning began. Lucas returned to the drawing board, sketching out ideas for flyers while graphing tasks like a project manager. But amid the activity, a quiet doubt echoed in him. What if no one showed up? What if his invitation fell flat? That thought bugged him, whispering hesitation into his heart at night. The internal monologue battled his growing excitement. Then he remembered how that earlier presentation had nurtured him. If he could sway those who listened then, why not others? This was part of the challenge, one he had already faced and triumphed over. Weeks morphed into a surreal crescendo of preparation. The success of his aim was wrapped up in more than the turnout. It was about planting the seeds of awareness and dialogue. Finally, the day approached, a date engraved in his mind and drawn on the calendar with thick red ink. Lucas's exhilaration was married to a raw anxiety. This was not simply an event, but a reflection of his evolving self and purpose. He stood at the edge of a journey poised to leap into action, but the final question loomed larger than ever. Would his vision cultivate the curiosity he believed it could ignite? The time had come for him to find out. What awaited him at that moment of truth could either dismantle or solidify his path ahead. Would he build connections, or was he chasing wanderlust built on dreams? Lucas stared at the calendar, the red ink looming ominously over the date. No amount of visualization could soothe the tangle of excitement and dread curling in his stomach. He felt like a tightrope walker, balancing precariously between the thrill of taking action and the fear of crashing down into disappointment. The evening before, he had spent hours reviewing his notes, refining his thoughts on sustainable farming. He had jotted down potential topics: soil health, crop rotation, community gardens. The facts felt solid in his mind, yet the unfamiliarity of leading the conversation gnawed at him. Lucas had been raised to believe he could navigate challenges with thoughtfulness and respect, but could he really inspire and connect with people, particularly those experienced in the field? As he drifted to sleep, his internal dialogue escalated. What if the room was empty? What if he stumbled over his words? Each "what if" tightened the coil of anxiety, but somewhere in that spiral, small flickers of valor broke through. The morning dawned crisp and clear. The sunlight streamed through his window, piercing through a cloud of his doubts. Lucas dressed deliberately, as though his clothes could cloak him in confidence. He spent extra time on each detail, fitting into a role that felt both foreign and thrilling. Arriving at the venue felt surreal. The community center stood tall, a hive of activity surrounded by sounds of laughter and conversation. Lucas's heart raced as parents, farmers, and locals trickled in. He had anticipated chatter from those who were already invested in sustainability, but witnessing it firsthand infused him with both hope and panic. Lucas, a familiar face, caught his attention. It was Mrs. Evans, her presence radiating support as she neared him. "You look a bit pale. Remember, this is your moment. You've prepared for this." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Thanks, Mrs. Evans. I just want it to matter, you know. I want them to care." His admission hung in the air, fraught with vulnerability. "I think they will. You care, and that passion is contagious," she encouraged, her eyes steady and reassuring. With a deep breath, Lucas positioned himself at the front of the room, heart pounding against his ribs. The podium felt like a lifeboat, both comforting and intimidating. As people settled and the whispers faded, he began to speak. Each word felt tentative, but as he shared his vision, connecting personal stories about sustainability with the topics on the agenda, he noticed the shifting expressions in the audience. Gradually, the attendees leaned in, engaged. Some nodded knowingly while others scribbled notes. Their expressions infused him with momentum. The doubt from earlier felt distant, an echo rather than a presence. Midway through his presentation, a hand shot up. "What do you think about the effectiveness of community gardens in urban settings?" A voice from the back called out, an older gentleman whose grey hair hinted at experience. "Great question," Lucas said, reconnecting the threads of his nervousness with an instinctual dialogue. "I believe they can transform a neighborhood. It's not just about food, but creating community, teaching children about nature, and fostering connection." Responses followed in a wave of curiosity and investment. Lucas navigated their questions, and with each exchange his voice grew steadier. A sense of belonging blossomed within him. This was no longer merely a presentation. It was a call to action, a bridge to understanding. As the session wound down, Lucas noticed a familiar look on some faces, a spark ignited by his passion. It wasn't just about information. He had begun weaving the threads of community through conversation, igniting a shared quest for knowledge and action. When the last question was answered, and the room erupted in applause, Lucas stood momentarily awash in gratitude. Yet, as the cheers surrounded him, a familiar voice crept in. What if this was just the beginning? How would he follow this moment? The realization that he had fostered dialogue ignited a thrill, but the next challenge loomed just ahead. What if the next discussion brought with it deeper divides or difficult truths? Lucas stepped down from the podium, his heart racing, laden with newfound aspirations and unresolved questions. He was left wondering, would he have the courage to confront the complexities that lay ahead, or would he retreat into the safety of uncertainty? Lucas felt exhilaration swell in his chest like a summer storm after stepping off the podium. The palpable energy in the room shifted something within him. Passion had resonated, igniting curiosity and leaving behind the remnants of his apprehension. He allowed a moment of pride to wash over him, yet as he turned away from the enthusiastic crowd and the echoes of applause faded, uncertainty seeped in like a creeping fog. In the days following the presentation, Lucas found himself fluctuating between bursts of determination and spirals of self-doubt. His mind buzzed with the prospect of what could come next. He remembered Mrs. Evans's words, but questions pierced his newfound confidence like needles. How would he translate this momentum into tangible action? What if this spark died out? Ideas flowed through his mind like rapid-fire pinballs. He envisioned workshops where he could facilitate discussions, mediums where he could explore pressing issues of sustainability within his community, and yet the reality of organizing such initiatives loomed dauntingly. Would people be willing to embrace these ideas with the same enthusiasm they had shown him? On a sun-drenched afternoon, Lucas decided to take a tentative step forward. He unlocked his laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. With a shuddering breath, he began jotting down a plan for his first workshop. He could start small, perhaps hosting it in his backyard, inviting friends and family to discuss sustainable practices, ideas that had surfaced from his earlier presentation. As Lucas began typing, familiar doubts surfaced. What if no one showed? What if they dismissed his ideas outright? These what-ifs threatened to bind him in a web of hesitation, dragging him back to that earlier moment of uncertainty. He paused, digging deeper into those feelings. Would he be defined by the opinions of others? Lucas felt conflicted. His upbringing had taught him the importance of humility and connection, yet he recognized that this was more than a conversation. It was a responsibility he wanted to embrace. He had the knowledge, gathered from late nights spent researching and advocating, but what was knowledge, if not shared? Empowered by that thought, he allowed himself to ride the momentum. He focused on the feeling he experienced when the crowd engaged with him. Voices echoed in his mind, encouragement and curiosity filled that room, and it was still within reach. So he typed methodically, drafting a simplistic outline with potential topics and activities. The exhilaration returned, mingling with the fear that still rumbled like distant thunder. When he finished, Lucas leaned back, satisfied, but still left with more questions than answers. That thrill of creating something from this passion sparked a deeper longing within him, to become not just a voice for sustainable practices, but a connector of people and ideas. What would happen if he reached beyond his immediate circle? What if he could foster collaborations that spanned generations, emboldening each participant? Days turned into nights, organizing and broadening his vision, the challenge morphing into an obsession. He sat across the table from his dual reflection, the unsure boy who feared rejection and the budding leader resolute to overcome each barrier. As he began reaching out for support, however, he noticed resistance from unexpected places. Friends responded with lukewarm enthusiasm, and family dismissed the more ambitious notions with laughter or skepticism. They didn't get it. A gnawing feeling settled in his chest. Did they think his passion was merely a phase? Doubt twisted inside him like an iron claw, squeezing as he considered retreating from his aspirations. Perhaps it would be easier to withdraw from this commitment and remain anchored to the safer shores of normalcy. Yet in doing so, he risked forsaking the transformation that had just begun. As Lucas settled back into the fabric of those doubts, he recognized a need to confront the dissonance between his ambitions and the expectations of those he loved. He had to stand against their pull towards complacency. The next day, he knew, would demand courage as he questioned each assumption and pushed back on the boundaries that defined him. The time had come to face not just his fears, but the potential resistance from those closest to him. What would it take to convince them of his vision? And could he shift their perspectives enough to share in this new journey? Lucas woke up that morning with a tumultuous mix of anticipation and dread. The sunlight streamed through his window, illuminating the scattered notes and plans he had hastily scribbled over the past days. Today would require more than just courage. It demanded conviction. He took a deep breath and prepared for the interactions ahead that would challenge not only his ideas, but the very foundation of his relationships. Over breakfast, he gathered his family around the table, their casual banter hanging in the air like a thin veil of normalcy. As they jokingly critiqued the toast sticking to the pan, Lucas felt that familiar twisting in his stomach. He cleared his throat to grab their attention, his heart racing as the room fell into a hush, curiosity painting their faces. "I've been working on something," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "a workshop focused on sustainability." As he uttered the words, he sensed their skepticism like an electric current pulsing through the air. He ignored the way his mother raised an eyebrow and his brother smirked, determining to push on. "We could discuss practical steps people can take to live more responsibly. I want to bring our community together to start a dialogue." His hands gestured emphatically, grounding his passion amidst the heaviness of doubt permeating the room. His father set down his coffee cup with a slight chuckle. "That sounds nice, Lucas, but is anyone really going to show up?" Then came the laughter from his brother, the kind that echoed mocking disbelief. The feeling of vulnerability crashed down on him, washing over his resolve like cold water. Resilience bubbled beneath the surface. Lucas reminded himself that their reactions, harsh as they were, didn't define his worth or vision. Instead of retreating, he leaned into the confrontation. Why wouldn't they? People care about the environment. What's wrong with wanting to make a difference? The surface of their reactions shifted. Disbelief morphed into discomfort. As he continued to defend his ideas, he noticed their expressions dulling, a barrier forming against his enthusiasm. That claw of doubt tightened once more, fueling the realization that this was no mere conversation. It was a struggle to lay bare his core identity. Hours later in school, the echoes of his family's dismissive laughter trailed him like shadows. Surrounded by classmates, he felt the weight of isolation. They chatted effortlessly about plans for the weekend, while Lucas sat in silence, grappling with the dichotomy of his ambitions. The spark of excitement he felt only moments ago faded against the walls of ridicule he faced at home. After class, Lucas trudged over to the library, seeking solace in the embrace of books filled with ideas and dreams. It was there he discovered an unexpected source of strength, a flyer for a local environmental competition that sought innovative solutions for sustainability. It called for fresh perspectives, open to anyone willing to collaborate. Could this be the catalyst he needed? Lucas felt the warm cascade of possibility. What if he leveraged this opportunity to create something larger? A springboard that could showcase his ideas and garner support from a broader audience. Excitement rushed through him, electrifying his fingers as they danced over the keyboard, creating a plan to enter the competition, blending his workshop concepts with tangible projects that aligned with its goals. This didn't just cater to his community. It expanded his reach beyond a backyard gathering. But as he crafted his vision, the question loomed large. Would his family see the breadth of his aspirations? Could he share his growing ambition while still honoring their reservations? His heart raced at the thought of rejection, yet a deeper instinct urged him to believe in his voice and vision. That evening, he penned another letter to his family, setting forth an invitation to re-engage with his ideas. It felt like a gamble, laying out the heart of his new plan, not just to talk about sustainability, but to invite them into the journey. With each stroke of the pen, his hope burgeoned anew, buoying him against the tide of skepticism. As he sealed the letter, Lucas knew he stood at a pivotal moment, caught between fear and determination. Would this initiative ignite their interest or push them further away? With every breath, he felt the weight of his choices solidifying his path. Tomorrow, he would confront not only steady doubts, but the very essence of his convictions with an audience he desperately wished to persuade. Would it reaffirm his purpose, or bury his dreams beneath their skepticism? Only time would tell, and Lucas could feel the storm of change brewing on the horizon. Lucas awoke the next morning, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts and nervous energy. He paced his room, rehearsing the words he hoped would resonate with his family. He leafed through his notes, filled with statistics and inspiring success stories from past sustainability initiatives. Each piece of information filled him with a mixture of purpose and anxiety about the impending conversation. As his family gathered for breakfast, he noticed the usual casual chatter felt heavy, loaded with unspoken skepticism. Lucas took his seat, hands fidgeting with his fork, heart drumming against his ribcage. He took a deep breath, steadied himself, and glanced around the table. "Thanks for being here, everyone. I want to share something important with you today." His voice cracked, betraying his tension. He caught the faint eye roll from his brother, but pressed on. "I believe we have an opportunity to engage in a local environmental competition." He felt the atmosphere shift momentarily, but his father's raised eyebrows and his brother's scoff quickly crushed the moment. Undeterred, Lucas pressed forward, eyes glinting with determination. "This isn't just a workshop. It's a chance to create something impactful, to really make a difference." Moments passed, punctuated by the heavy silence of doubt. A flush of frustration surged through him, but he tempered it with resolve. "I know you might think it's a long shot, but can't you see how much passion I have for this?" He met their gazes, one by one, seeking to break through the skepticism. His mother finally spoke up, her voice soft but clear. "I admire your enthusiasm, Lucas, but aren't there bigger problems to tackle?" It felt like a blow, yet within it lay a path forward, an invitation to respond, to challenge the notion that his dreams were too small or naive. What if we aim to change perceptions instead? He challenged himself to articulate a broader vision. This competition is about generating real solutions and garnering support. We could serve as a model for others. Imagine how inspiring it could be for our community. Lucas caught the flicker of interest in his mother's eyes, a faint glimmer emerging from her initial apprehension. He used this momentum. "Let's work together on this. Help me refine the idea, see how we can integrate what's important to you." The discussion shifted from dismissal to curiosity, building on small successes. As they debated logistics, Lucas felt the bonds of their relationship begin to tighten instead of fraying. It was invigorating. The realization that his family could evolve with him, and that their perspectives could be a resource rather than a barrier. After breakfast, Lucas stepped into the library, energizing himself to flesh out his ideas further. His mind buzzed with the collaborative spirit. He envisioned not only what his plans could accomplish, but how they could also invite others to be part of the journey. Each word he typed was an installation of his thoughts, reflecting a clarity born of newfound unity with his family. However, beneath the excitement lay gnawing doubt. The conversation had sparked a flicker of interest, but whether it would lead to sustained support remained uncertain. Would it mean the difference between solitary endeavor and a shared mission? Lucas grappled with the vulnerability of exposing more than just his ideas. He was inviting them into a part of himself that had long been hidden, not knowing how it would be received. As he worked diligently on his submission for the competition, an internal battle raged. He envisioned defeat in the face of potential embarrassment. What if the project fell flat? Yet an inner voice countered that such risks were embedded in courage. He mustered his budding courage, recognizing that every great change began with the willingness to embrace uncertainty. That evening, tired yet buzzing with anticipation, he typed an email to the competition organizers, expressing his intent to enter. With each keystroke, his confidence solidified. This wasn't simply about sustainability. It was about creating a legacy, about risking discomfort for potential growth. Still, a haunting question lingered. What if he faced rejection again? The stakes felt daunting, a looming test of his resolve. An electric tension wound around Lucas as he thought of the upcoming deadline and the mixed feelings of hope and dread it brought. Just as he was about to close his laptop, a notification pinged, an unexpected message from one of the organizers inviting him to a preliminary meeting. His heart raced. This could be the turning point he had desperately hoped for. The time had come to face not only competition, but every apprehension that had held him tethered in doubt. Would this meeting propel him forward, or unravel the fragile threads of conviction he had started to weave? Only hours away from confronting the next chapter of his journey, Lucas felt the unmistakable charge of destiny hovering just within reach. The day of the preliminary meeting arrived, casting an urgent thrill through Lucas. He felt his heart race as he stepped into the conference room filled with other hopeful participants, the atmosphere buzzing with charged anticipation. Today, he would not only present his ideas, but embody every lesson he had learned. His journey of personal growth would be on full display. As he awaited his turn, Lucas absorbed the innovative ideas shared by others. They radiated passion and skill, and for a moment, doubt crept back in. He questioned if he belonged among such talented individuals. But then, a wave of understanding washed over him. Each person was here for the same reason, passion for sustainability, and so was he. They were not adversaries, they were collaborators in a shared dream. When it was finally his turn, the familiar hammering of his heartbeat echoed loudly in his ears. Deep breath. Lucas approached the podium, gripping his notes tightly like a lifeline. The room settled into attentive silence. As he opened his mouth to speak, he felt an overwhelming sense of calm envelop him, the culmination of hard work, vulnerability, and support from those around him crystallized into focus. He started by sharing personal stories, recounting the afternoons spent mapping sustainable practices onto the rich tapestry of his family's tradition. The audience leaned in as he described the responsibilities that shaped him. It wasn't just data and statistics. It was a heartfelt connection to the soil that breathed life into his innovation. Lucas spoke of his vision, not merely as a project, but as a potential catalyst for change, a movement that intertwined their community with its environment. His passion resonated throughout the room. He engaged with them, encouraging dialogue throughout his presentation, transforming it into an interactive exchange where questions flowed and ideas sparked. As he wrapped up, he noticed the nodding heads and brightened faces among the audience. It was not just applause he received at the end. They didn't merely see a boy from a struggling farm. They recognized a peer with a purpose. The judges acknowledged him, their comments echoing validation. You've crafted a narrative that connects deeply. This is not just about farming. It's about community and sustainability. You've proven that. Relief mingled with a swell of pride. Lucas walked out of that meeting invigorated, ready to take the next steps forward. The weight he had carried for so long began to lift, as dreams of collaboration with local businesses, schools, and community members twinkled on the horizon. Returning home, his family was gathered around their dinner table, laughter filling the space. Eagerly, Lucas shared his experience, the way he had felt supported and recognized. Their expressions shifted, his words ignited a spark. They began discussing how they could weave their talents into this initiative as a family, as a unit, instead of individual endeavors. This was a monumental shift. They were finally engaging with his aspirations. His father suggested leveraging their farm for community workshops, while his mother expressed interest in building connections with local schools. A shared vision catalyzed conversations that flowed seamlessly, forging a bond that had previously felt strained by skepticism. Lucas realized the profound transformation within himself. He had stepped beyond the confines of doubt into a space marked by confidence and support. The likelihood of facing challenges remained, yet he felt equipped to tackle them head-on. Weeks later, as he prepared for the final presentation, he no longer viewed each moment as a daunting wall. Instead, they appeared as stepping stones toward his grand vision, opens doors to new opportunities, ways to learn and grow. When the day arrived for the final presentation before the judges, Lucas stood before them, pulsating with a consolidated sense of purpose. He had transformed ambiguity into clarity. Every preparation, every question, every setback had sharpened his resolve. Delivering his project, he showcased not only his environmental innovations, but also clearly illustrated how they aligned with communal values and potential collaborations. The judges could feel his enthusiasm, his willingness to embrace feedback, and his demonstrable commitment to sustainability and shared growth. As applause resonated in the room once again, the moment rippling outward filled him with a powerful sense of achievement. He felt grounded, valued, and celebrated, not just as Lucas, the boy from the farm, but as Lucas, a well-prepared contributor to the world of environmental innovation. Leaving the competition, he embraced a solidified confidence. He had not only conquered his fears, but had successfully forged his path as a leader in sustainability. His persistence, empathy, and passion coalesced into a bright future that extended beyond personal victory. Through understanding and articulating his narrative, he had bridged the gap between his dreams and reality, paving a route that illuminated the road ahead. This was not just about winning a competition, it was about personal growth, community engagement, and acknowledging the strength found in vulnerability. With every small step he had taken, Lucas had emerged resilient and empowered, ready not only to change the narrative of his own life, but to inspire others to join him in embracing the beauty of sustainable living. Now was the time to push forward, to continue his outreach, nurture those collaborations, and transform his agricultural vision into practical action. This transformation was just the beginning. With each sunrise that washed the fields in gold, Lucas realized that he was no longer tethered to doubt, he was anchored in purpose. Together with his family and community, they would nurture change, sow seeds of awareness, and cultivate a legacy of sustainability. You need to subscribe now to our channel to witness more incredible, personal, overcoming stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach others who need to hear these messages. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative journey. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and be part of our thriving community. Don't wait even one more second to share.